Thanks for having a look at our video on how to make a pressure-sensitive sensor for finger strength assessment. Hopefully you'll find this step-by-step guide easy. The first step is to trim the pressure-sensing fabric and conductive fabric. It is important to be as accurate as possible when cutting the fabric because there is little room for error when they are eventually joined together. Check that the two pieces of conducting fabric are the same size. You can download a template document form on the website which has some cutout diagrams that you can print off and use as templates. The next step is to cut out the contact to stick the pieces of fabric together. Take a piece of the silver fabric and stick it to the contact, then stick it to the pressure sensing fabric, allowing a border around the outside. On the other side, you will line up the pressure sensing fabric. Make sure it's facing the opposite direction so the tabs don't touch, then use another piece of contact to stick it all together. Trim the excess contact when you have stuck them together. It's really important that the two silver conductive sections don't touch each other or the sensor won't work. Make sure there are no loose threads that might cross the black fabric. Here we have the Arduino. It's an SAMD21 Mini from SparkFun Electronics. It has 3 wires that we pre-soldered to it, a red wire to VCC, black to GND and blue to A0. It's pretty easy to solder wires to a board like this, and if you want to learn how to do it, refer to the link in the notes section below this video. Trim the wires of the resistor so they are approximately 1 cm long using your wire cutters or snips. Trim a piece of the heat shrink, approximately 1.5 cm long, and place over one of the wires. Now it's time to join the resistor to the circuit board. Twist the wire of the resistor to the wire of the circuit board that has the piece of heat shrink attached. We like to use little alligator clips to hold the pieces while we bond them using a soldering iron. Next, we solder the wires together. Touch the metal tip of the soldering iron at about a 45-degree angle along with the solder. Try to be as quick as possible here because we want the wire to heat up enough for a good connection, but also don't leave the soldering iron resting on the wire for too long as it can heat the circuit board and surrounding equipment very quickly. Now we will use a soldering iron to bond the heat shrink to the wires. Try to get the heat shrink as close to the resistor as possible. It only requires a light brush with the soldering iron to shrink onto the wires. If you have a hot air gun, use it, otherwise a soldering iron will do the job. Make sure to use a part of the iron that doesn't have solder on it, as this is conductive and could cause problems. Now we will attach the connectors to the tabs of the pressure sensor. Slide the fabric into the connector as far as possible. Carefully thread the wire through the opposite end of the connector. Now it's time to crimp the connector to the wire. First of all, make sure you have a piece of heat shrink on the wire. Use one that can easily slide over the connector. When crimping, try and make it as firm as possible, but be careful not to crush the resistor. It's a good idea to seal the bond with solder to ensure it is conductive and will stay in place. Repeat the process for the other side. It can be tricky to match up the two sides. Try and be patient and use the alligator clips to help hold it together. Make sure that the fabric is not twisted between the sensor pad and the connector. Use a hot glue gun to place a small dot of glue, roughly the size of a pea, to the 3D printed structure. Stick the circuit board onto the glue. Be careful that it's facing the correct way. The USB connection will face out the end with the big hole. Use plastic glue to lightly prepare the surface of the 3D printed structure and the back of the fabric sensor. Use the hot glue gun to place a couple of dots of glue on the circuit board under the conducting fabric tabs. Then lightly touch the fabric down onto the glue to lock it in place. Now it's ready to go. You can plug it into the USB port on your computer, download the software and give it a try. Thank you for watching.